All right, here we go. Welcome back to a week 6. It's Wednesday at 6 o'clock, so I am going live. Here we are to week 6 of the semester, fall 2023. This is the weekly update for my online and in person students for Bio 201, Anatomy and Physiology. And if you've been keeping up with us, let's take a look here at the syllabus, the online schedule in particular, but kind of rolling through for the same on both modalities here. Week 5, we wrapped up with the integumentary system. Early in this week here, we finished up the let's kind of zoom on over here. Early in the week here, we finished up with the exams, so chapter 4 and 5, the tissue level of organization, the practical and exam that we completed here early in the week. And now for the next couple of weeks here, we're looking at the skeletal system. So weeks 6, 7, and 8 will all be included in the skeletal system. So weeks 6, 7, and 8, we'll look at the skeletal system, the bones of the body. That gives us our exam here over the 3 chapters. And that'll be, looks like almost 3 weeks from now, right? So October 17th. October 17th is a Tuesday. And that is, can't pull up my calendar here. Let's see. And that is 1, 2, 3 weeks there. So about 3 weeks for that next exam before we get into the skeletal system. So the lab assignments include this appendicular and axial skeleton, so identifying the bones of the body, and that's going to be a big portion of this in terms of the anatomical determination of this course here as it relates to the skeletal system. So not only knowing all of the bones of the body, but also knowing the bones landmarks, these kind of bony landmarks that kind of flows into our movement analysis and muscles. So muscles attached to these bony landmarks, nerves exit from these bony landmarks, and so we'll be learning them. A good resource that you want to know here is the University of Michigan Medical School. So University of Michigan, I'll pop on that website here. I should have a link to it on my Canvas. If not, I'll make sure that's there. But if you go to this resource here called Blue Link Images, particularly we're going to be looking at Blue Link Images, you've seen maybe a couple of pictures of a musculoskeletal radiology. Those are some of the X-ray pictures, some MRI pictures. But when we look at bones, joints, and movement here, bones, joints, and movement, you'll see that there it is, right? The scapula, the humerus. We'll be identifying these pictures. Now, I use this as a resource in terms of some of my testing. So I will use these pictures here. There is a unlabeled. So if you click back here to the link here, you'll see that one in the blank, right? There's the scapula, the humerus off to the right there, the clavicle bones, the scapular bones. Now, I'm going to click back here and I'm going to go over some of those bones that we've just already seen, the scapula, the clavicle, because these bones have, as I mentioned, landmarks. So those landmarks here are should be familiar to us as we start to progress through this class and through this semester. So the acromial end, right, the sternal end of the clavicle here. The acromial end is lateral. The sternal end is medial. It's where the sternum attaches to the clavicle. And so that's the axillary border there, or the lateral border. There's the medial border, the superior and inferior angle. And so these are the bony landmarks that we should be familiar with. And I utilize these bony landmarks in our I use these pictures in our practicals for identifying those structures. So again, the big portion of this is going to be bony landmarks. Bony landmarks of the axial skeleton as it relates to the skull. Let's see if I've got some structures here as it relates to the skull. That's a big one as well. Again, the resource here, I'm going to zoom in for everybody. See if I can zoom in. There it is. Zoom in. Under resources here, Blue Link Images is the source, and I clicked on Blue Link Images, and now I'm here in the resources page. So deep back and spinal cord is one that we use. We're going to be looking at the deep back and spinal cord. We're going to be looking at the bones, joints, and movements, overview of the upper limb, lower limb here, the regions of the skull. Let's see, cranial cavity, venous sinuses, and brain. So there we go. You can see these structures of the skull, and the skull is it gets a little bit tricky sometimes identifying this in a three-dimensional shape. So we see the anterior view is kind of that coronal view of the skull. You'll see a transverse, a view from from superior to inferior, and the regions of the brain that are made up of that, the actual bones that are consisted there, right? The ethmoid bone, the sphenoid bone, the temporal bone, and the occipital bone, as well as, let's see if we could zoom down the opposite way here, the structures associated with the skull that so foramen spinosum ovale, the emergence of arteries and nerves where they go to the brain. Foramen magnum, that's the opening for the spinal cord, where the spinal cord connects with the brain, and so that opening there is an anatomical distinction, right, between the brain and spinal cord, but as well you'll see that these features are there. Let's see here. I will also address some of the physiological components, and that's really kind of chapter 6. So as we jumped into chapter 6, which is now up and available here, chapters 7 and 8 will be will be up shortly. But let me give it the student view. There it is. The chapter 6, the lecture material, is really related to the physiological components of the skeletal system. So you'll see bone as a tissue. We'll look at the functions of the bones, the parts of a long bone, as well as the structural components of the histological structures of those bones, right? Like the tissue, bone as a tissue. Let me give you an idea as to the slides here, but we're going to be jumping in pretty good into these bones intricately. So next week, again, also, there it is. Here we go. So the functions of the skeletal system, that's going to be some of those physiological components, like what are the functions supporting the body, facilitating movement, protecting those internal organs, storage and release of minerals and fats, right? So we've got calcium packed into those bones, as well as fat in the yellow marrow. So yellow marrow primarily restores fat. Red marrow is responsible for hematopoiesis, the structure of, or the production of blood cells. There it is right there. Right, the production of blood cells. As well, in chapter 6, we'll start to identify the bone classification there. Remember, we just talked about the axial and appendicular skeleton, the structures related to the more medial structures, skull, vertebral column, and rib cage, versus the appendicular skeleton, your arms and legs, and then the girdles that are attached to them. So whether it's the shoulder girdle or the pelvic girdle there. There's another classification of bones based on their shape, and then we get into the structure of bone, right? The structure of a long bone is really the classic bone of movement, and so this is really what we'll emphasize in terms of the structure of bones. We can also see the structure of flat bones, right? There's a structure of flat bones as well, which is spongy bone in the middle, compact bone on the outside. And then we should get familiar with some of these bone markings, right? Bone markings, articulations, heads, facets, condyles. They will help us to identify where those bony landmarks are. The chemical composition of bone. The structures of bone as well. And we're starting to see that here. Oh, I gotta fix this, huh? Let me fix that. I'm just gonna add something here for my. We're gonna fix this right here for my online class. More of a online curator as well. All right, there we go. In chapter 6, they're available. So, again, I look forward to moving through the skeletal system here. So, one of the things that you'll want to look at here as it relates, you know what, I'll publish it here for you guys. Probably pretty close. Let's see what we have here. If we go to modules, textbook and additional resources, histology guides and websites, appendicular skeleton. Let's do this. I'm going to add it right now. I'm going to add this resource. It's going to be called skeletal system. And what you'll see is that it'll have a list of many of the structures related to the skeletal system that you should be familiar with. Let me see where this is. I said we're going to add a text header. It's going to be called skeletal system. And we're going to add a file. That file is going to be called bones of the body. Look at all these pictures. Look at all those bones that I got set up for you guys. Pictures. No. That's a little nugget for you, everybody here. There it is. Bang. Okay, here we go. Okay, it comes out pretty good. There's the bone, the occipital bone here. So there is the external occuperance. It's a little process. The inferior nuchal line, right? The vertebrae, the vertebral body. Like you'll see here, these are the structures: atlas, axis, vertebrae prominence, right? The particular seventh cervical vertebrae that sticks out a little bit more than the other cervical vertebrae, has a little bit more of a spinous process. You can see here. So what we have here, again, kind of as related. You're going to be asked to know the structures of the bones of the body, including the sternal and acromial ends. So there it is, and we've got those pumps there. And so clavicle, scapula, humerus, and all those bones of the body there. But again, we'll get ready for that one in week. It looks like week 9. We're going to start that one. We're in the middle of week 6, about week 9. So we've got 7, 8, and on this third week, right on that week of the 17th / the 19th, is going to be the week where we'll be completing that exam there for the skeletal system, chapter 6, 7, and 8. Chapter 6, 7, and 8 there for you guys. But let me make sure I got everything cleared up here on my page. All right, that'll wrap it up for my live stream this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you the best. We will continue to, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, send me an email here. We'll address those either privately or personally, or here on the live stream. Again, this is for both my online and in-person classes. And as we get into this axial and appendicular skeleton, you might see these open hours get a little bit longer, a little bit more of a review of the structures involved. But until then, I look forward to seeing all of your guys' responses. Take care, and I wish you all well. And that's it.